Unfinished business. For many of us, that's the case at some point in our ultracycling endeavors. It could have stayed that way for ultracycling veteran Dex Tooke, who made it 99% of the way in the race across America in 2010, but then had to make the difficult decision of DNF'ing just shy of the glorious finish line in Annapolis, Maryland. In his words, there are 1,000 reasons to give up and not keep going, but you have to find that one reason to push on. And so in 2011, Dex came back strong with a successful RAAM crossing and has since crewed for countless other racers. In addition to RAAM, Dex has set 2 cross-state records in Texas, competed in the Tejas 500, and founded the well-known No Country for Old Men Ultra Event and RAAM qualifiers in Texas. Dex was a smoker in his younger years and also an ultra runner, and has a wealth of experience and wisdom to share with all of us at 70 years of age. And he also has a book aptly titled Unfinished Business, all about his Race Across America adventures. He lives in Del Rio, Texas, and has logged over 290,000 career miles. You're really in for a treat on this episode, so grab your favorite snack and enjoy. I'm your host, Justin Tooke. Let's roll. Hey Ultra family, Justin Tooke here, your host of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for tuning in to today's special episode with RAAM finisher, ultra cycling veteran, and former race director for the No Country for Old Men event in Texas, Dex Tooke. Dex, thanks for joining me on the show today. It's really a privilege.
Justin, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, of course, you are a RAAM finisher, but more than that, you've authored a book on your experiences, not just with the experience you had in finishing, but also in not finishing. And of course, the book is appropriately titled Unfinished Business here on Amazon.com for folks to see if they want to pick that up. Now, a good ultra cycling friend of mine, bought me a copy of this in 2014, but it's been quite a while since I was reading through. So it'll be great to discuss and hear firsthand from the author himself, the man, the myth, the legend. And so it's really a privilege to have you on the show. And of course, I'm sure many in the ultra cycling community would be familiar, at least with your name, if not your accomplishments and also your event. As I mentioned, you were the race director and the founder and creator of the No Country for Old Men race. Now, here's just some photos to give folks a glimpse of what we'll be chatting about. Really cool. Thanks for sending those through. And then, of course, the No Country for Old Men event. And if I'm understanding correctly, if folks go to ncomrace.com, they'll still find the event, but you have handed it over to Andrew Willis as the new race director, correct?
Yes. This year, 2020, was Andrew's first year of handling the race. And he did a great job. He was trying to get as many people as he could out with the COVID. And so he had to change the routes up to where previously NOCOM was a RAAM style race, meaning that you had to have a crew, and it was a follow vehicle and crew. And Andrew was able this year to change the routes to a 75-mile loop in the Davis Mountains where they could ride it. And he had an aid station out there. And so he was able to do the race where people could do it without a crew.
Interesting. A lot of race directors have had to adjust during this interesting year, and we'll see what happens in 2021.
Yeah.
But so Dex, I'd like to first start with a sprint round of questions, just a short series of questions to get to know you in a nutshell in a fun way. And so my first question, of course, you're still very young. It's 7 years old. So how long have you even been riding bicycles, Dex?
I've been riding, I guess, since 1987. I mean, of course, I had a banana seat high bar bicycle as a kid, but I as soon as I could graduate to a motorcycle, I did. So I got rid of the bicycle early. And then I didn't start riding until 1987.
Ah, I see. Okay. So 1987, you started riding bikes. But how long have you been an ultra cyclist?
I did my first ultra race in 2006. I was actually on the internet one day just surfing, uh, and I saw that there was a 24-hour, the Tejas 500. I found the Tejas 500. It was located in Cleburne, Texas at that time, and they were having a 24-hour event. And I had never ridden over 100 miles in my life. And I saw that 24-hour race. I said, man, that
Wow.
sounds interesting. So I packed everything I owned up, and I went and parked my car on the side of it. It's a 25-mile loop, and I parked on the loop, and I would ride a couple of laps and stop. And I didn't know anything about hydration, anything about nutrition, but I did that 24-hour race. And during the night, I'd stop and hold the flashlight with my teeth and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then go ride another lap. And I ended up riding, I think, 320 miles that first ultra race, that first 24-hour race, and I was hooked after that.
Wow, that's a really impressive, Dex. Can't believe it. So that was in 2006.
Yes.
And of course, since then, you've accomplished even more. And of course, the ultimate ultra cycling event, the Race Across America, which
Yeah.
you were able to accomplish. Now, I'm wondering, Dex, how many bicycles do you own?
I have three. I have a Trekimonda. That's my backup bicycle for when my regular road bicycle can't make it that day. And I have a November bicycle that I have on a kicker trainer here in my man cave. And then my regular road bike, I just purchased within the last year. It's an open gravel bike.
Hmm.
It's an open upper. I love it. It's the best bicycle purchase I've ever made.
Wow.
I put 700 by 32 C tires on it.
Hmm.
And I ride them at 60 pounds in the front and 75 pounds in the back, and they're smooth. And I've got the flared bars on it. And I really like my open upper.
That's so awesome. It's glad to see so much joy and enthusiasm from you at 7 years of age still for a new bike that you can get. That's so awesome. Now, which of those bikes do you ride the most these days?
It's the open upper. I ride it every day.
Cool.
If you're familiar with the roads out here in Texas, the chip seal is pretty bad. And so the 700 by 32s and the low tire pressure really make it a lot more comfortable. But I love my open upper.
Yeah, I can imagine. Of course, you currently reside in Del Rio, Texas, and that is right on along the border, right?
Yes, it's on the Mexico border. It's a stone's throw to Mexico.
That's awesome. Now, Dex, do you use a bicycle computer like a Garmin or Wahoo still?
I use a Wahoo Element.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, but I'm sure through the years you were a Garmin user, right? From the beginnings?
I used Garmin before the Element,
Right.
and I used magnets and little computers on the handlebars before that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it sounds like ages ago.
Yeah.
Now, what gearing do you prefer using? Is there something specific?
I have a compact on my upper that I like.
Oh, okay.
It's a 5034,
Mm.
and I have an 11 speed, and I have an 1134 on the back. So I can actually,
Ah,
when push comes to shove, I can get a 3434.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. Now, do you worry about heart rate or power these days anymore?
No, I never have been
Yeah,
I'm a dinosaur when it comes to that type of stuff. I
yeah.
prefer not to know.
Hmm.
I'm sure I could probably be maybe a better or faster cyclist if I knew my power and tried to train with it and everything. But I don't even use a heart rate monitor.
Mm.
In fact, on my Element, when I turn it on, I don't even want to know how slow I'm going. I don't want to know my speed. I don't want to know my average speed.
Yeah.
I have it on the time of day. And I'll turn it on when I start, and I'll turn it off when I end, and then I'll get all my data at the end of the ride.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, sometimes it is a distraction and it takes away from the enjoyment of the ride. So
Yeah.
That's good
I
to
can
hear.
still chase telephone poles out on the road. I mean, I do my intervals, but chasing telephone poles.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
and so, and I can do, a good climb. And so I
Uh,
still get my speed workouts in. I just don't use the power levels that most of the other people use.
right. Yeah, no, that's great to hear, Dex. I'm really curious now. What are your favorite ride snacks when you're on the bike? What do you like eating?
I'm a real food type guy. I'm not a powder sugary thing.
Uh,
I guess my favorite snack are Little Debbie oatmeal cookies. I really
oh,
like Little Debbie oatmeal cookies. They do me good.
that sounds awesome. But then, what do you like drinking with that? Cup of
I
coffee, a glass of milk in your bottle?
I do like a chocolate milk every now and then, but I like carbonated water. Yeah, I like carbonated water because it makes me burp.
Hmm.
And I've learned through all my years of not only ultra cycling, but also ultra running,
Hmm.
that anytime I can burp, I'm in good shape. When
Hmm.
I'm not burping, I'm not doing very good.
Hmm.
And the
Interesting.
carbonated water makes me burp. And I throw some drip drop hydration in there with it, and it seems to do me good. Now, I do
Hmm.
alternate. I'll have a bottle of the carbonated water and drip drop on my bike, and then I'll have another bottle of just plain water. So
Hmm.
I do alternate them.
Hmm. That's a very interesting strategy you have there. I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom and experience behind it. Now,
Yeah.
you did bring up something interesting about running. So you actually started jogging in 1978. You were 28 years old at the time. And
Yes.
before you turned an incredible ultra cyclist, you completed the Boston Marathon in 1996. You also did the Dallas Ultra Runners 24-hour race, and that was your first ultra running race in 1997. And it was
Yes.
just in 2000 that you stopped running, and then it was cycling for you exclusively at that point, right?
Yes. When I started running in '78, uh, I was out of shape. I was a smoker. I was. I went. I was out late every night. I went to a
Hmm.
football quarter-mile track to go see to make sure I was staying in shape. I was going to go run a mile, and I couldn't make one lap around that track. So I started walking
Wow.
the curves and running the straightaways, walking the curves and running the straightaways,
Hmm.
and until I could make a whole lap. And I had a friend who was kind of being my coach at that time, and he got me started on something that I have a firm belief in, and that's the 21-day rut. You do
Hmm.
anything for 21 days in a row, and cheers.
Hmm.
So he had me out there no matter what. I was out there for 21 days. And after I got to where I could run a whole lap, then I could run a whole mile. He said, Dex, you need to run for 30 minutes. And
Hmm.
I said, 30 minutes, Bill? Nobody can run for 30 minutes. That's a whole TV show. He said, you need to run for 30 minutes. And so uh, I got to where I could run for 30 minutes. And once I could run for 30 minutes, that's when I put the cigarettes down and I really started, changed my life. And I began running 5Ks and 10Ks, and then marathons and the Boston marathons, and then the ultra running and the 24-hour stuff. But the whole time I was running, I stayed injured a lot of the time. My body just couldn't take the trauma that running brings on the joints and the bones, the impact of landing on your feet so hard. And so in 2000, I decided I would turn all my training over to bicycling only. And since then, my injuries have been practically nil. And the only trauma in cycling is, I guess, is when an 18-wheeler hits you. So
Yeah.
it's
Has
been,
that happened to you?
no.
Oh, that's good.
I have had some serious accidents, but I haven't had an
Yeah.
18-wheeler hit me.
Okay, good to hear. Phew. Okay. Dex, that's an inspiring story, and it's amazing. I think we've had several guests on the show who have been smokers as well before, and it's incredible how what ultra cycling can do for somebody, no matter your circumstance, no matter how you may have started. It's incredible how you can end in your career And quite frankly, you're 70 years old, but yet you're still going strong. And it was just in 2018 that you set another cross-state record. That was in Texas, from the west to the east of Texas. And so, of course, then, let's see, I guess you were about 68 years old at the time?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely no excuses for the rest of us.
Yeah. The Texas cross state west to east, both the north to south and west to east are very similar in the total number of miles.
Mm.
I think they're like 860 or something like that.
Mm.
But to me, the west to east was much more difficult than the north to south. I did the north to south, I think, when I was 63.
Wow.
And then I did the west to east when I was 68. And it was more difficult
Mm.
on the west to east.
I could only imagine. Now, Dex, most people would think somebody would say when I was 23, when I was 38, I was doing this record and that record. So you definitely give a whole new perspective to what it means to be an athlete, quite frankly, just a human being, but also an ultra cyclist. So thanks for all the inspiration that you give to the whole community of ultra cyclists. And I'm sure your friends and family have been very inspired through all of your crazy adventures. Now, talking about crazy adventures, after you finish one of them, Dex, nice long, hard ride, maybe one of the records that you've set, what is your favorite post-ride meal? Like, what do you just love or crave to eat whenever you can after a big effort?
I like a Denny's breakfast. I like to go to a Denny's and get a good pancake breakfast with eggs and maybe even a fried egg sandwich. I love fried egg sandwiches.
Oh,
yeah. Breakfast seems to always do me good no matter what time of day it is.
That's great. Now, did you find many Denny's across America when you were racing?
Well, when I was racing across America, I wasn't stopping at Denny's very often. We do have them here in Texas, and after my Texas record, we did go to Denny's.
That's great. Glad you were able to celebrate in your favorite way.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Dex, do you prefer riding on the climbs, the descents, rollers, or the flats?
I like the rollers, but I want to qualify my answer.
Okay.
There's a lot more to riding than rollers and flats and climbs and descents. There's things like wind and temperature and pavement and traffic and those type things. And so if I prefer the rollers. That's my preference. But I prefer the rollers when it's like 55 degrees and no wind and no traffic and good pavement. So that's what I really prefer.
Interesting. All right. What about the rollers? What do you like about them?
I like a roller because you can really bear down on them when you first start going downhill on them, descending. And then you can take that momentum halfway up the next rise.
Yes.
And you have a break in there with you, or I do. I have a break with my effort. I can really work hard going down and then use that momentum up halfway and then go again and finish top. And I like that change of effort.
Yeah. No, that's a good strategy, actually. Never thought about it that way. And I guess you got a lot of that, of course, from Missouri all the way to the East Coast. So you must have been having a blast. I guess that's one of the things that must have kept you motivated to get there.
Well, I wasn't exactly having a blast from Missouri to the Appalachians.
Yeah.
RAAM is you only feel good the first day. And after that, it's hard. I'm a bubble guy. I've never been fast. I've never been known for my speed. I'm a guy that's on the bubble time-wise. And for me, I mean, my hat is off to Ballo and Strasser and Pattinson and Hasse and all these guys that can do RAAM in 8-9 days. I tip my hat to those guys, but I doubt very seriously if they've been on their bike for 12 days.
Hmm.
And for someone like me to have to, I can't just do it in 8 or 9 days. I have to do it in 12 days
Yeah.
or 13 days even. And so it's a lot more difficult. And so there's a lot of total exhaustion out there going on. And I think, I don't remember the Ozarks in Missouri being very popular when I was doing RAAM. I didn't like those very much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an interesting perspective you bring, and very true. I like what you said, with RAM, you only feel good the first day. And of course, that
That's right.
is true. And it's, especially once the fanfare fades away and, the field starts thinning out and you're out there in the middle of the country, there's hardly anyone around, there's no spectators cheering along the side of the road. It not only is exhausting, but it's also quite lonely. That's why
Yes.
you need a good crew as well. On that note, you have been a crew member, and I'd imagine also a crew chief on many, many occasions as well, right?
I have not been a crew chief, but I have crewed RAAM 8 times since
Wow.
I raced RAAM in 10 and I raced RAAM in 11. And then in 12 on up through 19, I've been a crew member.
Wow.
And I've crewed all kinds. I've crewed Barlow and I've crewed Hasse and I've crewed Pattinson and I've crewed, I've been on the best of crews and I've been on the worst of crews. And crewing RAAM is in my blood. I can't imagine being anywhere in June other than in Oceanside.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy the excitement. I mean, it's hard work. It's exhausting. It's everything about it is a challenge, but I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world.
That's great. Yes, and you definitely have a lot of dedication to the sport and commitment to serving and giving back with all of the racers that you crew for. And I'm sure all of your wealth of experience and decades of riding helped them a lot. And so that's really awesome. Now, Dex, do you like going down hills? Do you know what your maximum speed down a hill has been before?
I'm not a daredevil.
Yeah.
My maximum speed going downhill today is probably 35 to 37 miles an hour, something like that.
I understand. Well, you still get some enjoyment. The wind's still blowing through your hair.
Not through my hair. It's not.
All right, Dex, out there in Texas, I would imagine it's hot year round, but when do you enjoy riding the most? Is there a specific season, fall, winter, spring, or summertime?
Probably fall is my best season. And my best time is early in the morning. I'm usually on my bike by 4:30 or 5 in the morning because I love riding at night. I believe for one thing, I believe it's safer riding at night. I have really, really good taillights and headlights. And I know that those cars coming up behind me see me a lot better at night than they do in the daytime. My bright light is visible for as far as they can see. And plus, the traffic is a third of as much traffic at 5 in the morning as there is at 8 in the morning. And so I really enjoy early in the mornings. I really do. And I ride every day that way.
Yeah, that's excellent. And it's a good point that you make, actually, something for the rest of us to consider, actually. And as long as you do have these days, you can really pick up some great quality, very bright lights front and back. And
exactly. And spend the money. Buy the best light, buy the good light. That's going to be a lot less money than your visit to the ER.
Very true.
Yeah, and it's even my light is visible good in the daytime. I mean, it's excellent.
Yeah. Yes, I can agree with that. I do have some very good lights myself, very visible during the daytime. It helps, but I could just imagine at nighttime how much more bright that would be. And it would make you very visible to drivers. Now, Dex, in all your years of experience and even watching other racers, competing in your event, in the Race Across America or others, what have you come to the conclusion about what does ultra cycling require more of, physical or mental training and strength and fortitude?
Uh, well, you have to have the mental for sure. I mean, the physical for sure. But once you get that physical, I think well, I've been riding for 30 years, so, or 30 plus years. So once you get that physical, it'll kind of stay with you.
Mm.
I don't mean the speed, but the physical, your legs will stay with you. You'll have the
Yeah.
legs. But what is definitely more difficult is the mental.
Mm.
You can you can have especially during an ultra race, whether it be NOCOM or RAAM or whatever, you're going to find 1,000 ways for you to quit that race.
Mm.
You're
So true.
going, you're going, the wind's bad, the traffic's bad, the pavement's bad, the temperature's bad. I can't keep anything in my stomach. All these
Mm.
things are going to pop up and they're going to make you want to quit that race. But you
Mm.
better find one good reason to stay in the race. You got to find one good reason to wipe all those other negatives out to stay in
Mm.
that race, and that's where the mental comes in. And I think that the mental is definitely tougher than the physical.
Mm. Yes, very well said, Dex. Boy, couldn't agree more. Many years of wisdom behind that answer, and I can appreciate that a lot. Very
A lot
true.
of trial and error on my part.
Yeah, and that tends to be the case. I will be the first to admit I've made many mistakes. Even after years of racing, you continuously make more, but I suppose that makes you better. Now, Dex, what has been one of your favorite events in all of your ultra cycling career?
Well, I'm a RAM junkie. I'll always be a RAM junkie. Uh, I think it's just amazing the logistics that it takes to put that race on, the uh, to get a minimum of two vehicles and 9 people and a lunatic on a bicycle across America in 12 days. The logistics to pull that off is amazing.
Mm,
And then the physical effort itself by the cyclist.
mm,
Uh, it's just something that got in my blood the first time I tried it in 2010, and it's been there ever since.
mm. Yeah, so true. And it's great to see all of your involvement and participation in the Race Across America. And so thanks for all of those fun answers. And it's nice to get to know you very quickly. Of course, I do want to turn our attention to a lot of these great photos that you've sent through and, to go back and explore the career of Dex Tooke as an ultra cyclist and all of your incredible achievements. Now, of course, as we have here, in 2010, that was the first year that you attempted the Race Across America.
Yes.
But then it was only the next year, 2011, that you were able to complete it. So why
Yeah.
don't we start with 2010 and just to learn a bit about what had happened? What were some of the biggest lessons you learned?
Okay. In 2010, I had a great start. I got to Durango, which is the first minimum cutoff, with 9 hours ahead of the cutoff time. I was doing great. Um, and 2010 was a cool year because that was Yuri's last year, Yuri Robich's last year.
Mm.
And that was back when they used to let all the old farts and the females start a day ahead of time.
Ah,
And so
interesting.
I was 60 years old, so I got to start 24 hours before the open field ever started.
Wow.
So I was on down the road. And I remember it was like the wee hours of the night. It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I was in Utah somewhere. I was missing all the monuments. I was in Monument Valley and I was missing seeing all those because it was dark.
Yeah.
And I hear this music coming up behind me. and it's this military type music,
Huh.
loud boom, boom, boom. And I knew who it was immediately because I knew who was going to be the first person to pass me. And it was Yuri. And I don't know if you know very much about Yuri, but I don't think Yuri was known for his bedside manner. But Yuri came up beside me, and he rode with me just for a little bit. And his English was better than my Slovenian by a long shot. But I asked Yuri, and he was very polite and courteous to me. I mean, I know he had a reputation. I think he'd gotten a fine at the start of that race for urinating in the flower bed at Oceanside. But anyway, he was, we talked just briefly, and I asked Yuri, I said, Yuri, what are you wanting to do this year? What do you want to break? And he said, I want to break the 8-day barrier. And I said, wow. And he was on track. He was doing as well getting to Durango as I was, as far as our proportional times. So he was on his way to break the 8-day. But what Yuri or I, either one, didn't know was the weather that lay ahead on the other side of Wolf Creek Pass. It was deemed some of the worst weather in RAAM history. I remember I'd gone past Wolf Creek, and I was getting ready to climb Kuchara, and it was night, and I could see lightning and the clouds when the lightning would light up the clouds. And Jim Harms, the head race official, was at the foot of Kuchara, and he said, Dex, it's cold up there. It's lightning, it's hailing, it's thunderstorms. We're recommending people just take a break now. And I said, well, Jim, I said, I'm riding good, and I'm still dry right now. So I kept going. And that was a mistake because I didn't have on, the thunderstorm and hail hit all of a sudden. And I didn't have the right clothing on. I didn't have the right jacket on. I didn't have the right warmers on. And I got hypothermia real quick. And I had to be taken off the course. But actually, the winds were like 60 miles an hour. I mean, the highway was littered with RAAM crews and RVs just stopped on the side of the road because they couldn't get on their bicycle because the wind was blowing them off.
Wow.
And we were all just out there watching the clock tick. And I went from 9 hours ahead of cutoff in Durango to behind the 8 ball by the time I got to Trinidad. I lost like a total of, I think it was 17 hours.
Jeez. Amazing.
And in 10, there were like 32 or 34 solo RAAM racers in 2010. And out of that, there were only 10 racers that finished.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And I was number 11. I was the last man on the road. There was nobody else out there racing RAAM but me. All the teams had gone through. Everybody else had already DNF'd. And I was in like, I don't know if it's called Flintstone or Flint Rock, Maryland. It was right outside of Cumberland and right before the Three Sisters. And we were doing the math, and there was no way I was going to make the cutoff. I was going to make the time cutoff. No way. I would have had to have averaged. I would have had to take no more breaks and would have averaged over 20 miles an hour for the remaining 180 miles to complete RAAM within the time limit. And I was completely beat. I needed to go down for a sleep at that time, and we knew there was no way. And so that's when I stopped, and I told my wife, Johnny, I said, call RAAM, call George. George Thomas was at the finish line. I said, call George and tell him we're DNF.
Wow.
And she said, I'll call George, but I don't give a damn. You're going to ride your bicycle across this country. And I said, no, I'm not, Johnny. I said, RAAM's a competition. It's a race. It's not a tour. And I want to respect that. And so I DNF'd and I put my bicycle in the car and we drove to Annapolis. Wow. And it was just heartbreaking because I was, like I said, I was the last one out there and I didn't want to give up at all. But there was just no way mathematically that I was going to be able to make it. And that was one of the most disappointing times in my life.
What a heartfelt story, Dex. Thanks for sharing that. I could just imagine the devastation after such an adventurous and epic ride, of course, needless to say. And you were just 180 miles out. A lot of people DNF well before that. To get to that point, wow, incredible. But yet, of course, you did come back the following year and you did complete it. And before we talk about that, I do want to discuss some points that you raised in your 2010 race. I think there's probably a lot of wisdom to share there, and it's just great to hear the story and to understand that, for folks, although we may interview guests on the show that have done RAAM multiple times and perhaps have had an easier time compared to others, or had years where the conditions were more favorable, it is worth noting the challenges that people face, but more than that, also the obstacles that ultra cyclists are able to overcome, including yourself, even in 2010 when you weren't able to get to the finish line of RAAM in the cutoff time, but you were able to push through, like you said, with the over 30 participants that year. You were able to get through that, and that was a huge accomplishment in itself. And so I did want to turn our attention here to a map of the United States. Now, I do have the general RAAM route here on Ride with GPS so folks can understand what you were talking about. So, of course, the race starts on the West Coast here in Southern California at Oceanside, does so every year, and ends in Annapolis, Maryland on the East Coast, Northeast. And you were talking about in Colorado here, just about midway, once you go through the Rocky Mountains. And here in the Google map, I've pulled up Wolf Creek Pass and Kuchara Pass.
Yes.
And so, of course, Wolf Creek, very famous one. You get to the top and there's the Great Divide sign. And shortly after that, it looks like about, at least here on the map, if you were driving, say, it's about 142 miles to Kuchara, which is the last big climb before you descend into Kansas, which is on the right side here on the east of Colorado as you make your way there.
Yes.
This is where you had those thunderstorms, and it's a very high elevation, both at Wolf Creek, but also at Kuchara. And
yes,
this is where you were getting hypothermia, right?
Yes, Kuchara. Actually, most of the thunderstorms, you go back to your map, most of the thunderstorms and lightning and everything were happening at La Beta right before Kuchara.
Ah, okay, right here, yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Yes. And so, of course,
Kuchara, let me tell you a little story about Kuchara. I had it in my mind that for some reason that Kuchara was like a 5-mile climb, mountain pass climb. That's how I had it in my mind. It was dark when I was going through Kuchara, dead black, and raining and cold and everything. And I had it in my mind it was like a 5-mile climb. And so I looked at my little computer on my bike. I had a cap light on my helmet.
Yeah.
And I looked at my computer when I started the Kuchara Pass. And I thought, all right, I know I'm going to watch how long it's going to take me to do this 5-mile climb. I'm going to be able to tap it off as I watch the tents go by. And I watched the tents go by, and I watched the tents go by, and I watched 5 miles go by, and I watched 7 miles go by. And I thought, dang it. We kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And I think it ended up being like a 13-mile climb. I just had it in my mind it was 5 miles, and it wasn't. It was a lot further. And that just tore me up because I kept thinking around every little curve. I think, all right, this is going to be the peak of it. This is going to be the peak.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was just forever and ever.
Mm.
And then I've also, in my crewing years, I've been through there during the daytime. And Kuchara is by far my favorite climb in RAAM.
Mm.
It's the most scenic. It's better than Wolf Creek. It's better than anything in the Appalachians. Kuchara is one of the best climbs in RAAM.
Mm. Yeah, and I could agree with that. I've actually quickly pulled up a photo here at the top, and it'll be familiar to many racers in the Race Across America. Now, this photo doesn't quite do it justice because I think over here by the car, that's when you'll probably see the really amazing view as you really start seeing the flat plains start laying out ahead of you. And of course, you can see a lot of rolling hills, and even the descents once you start going, you get a really fast, steep descent initially and get a couple of rollers as you're going down. And it's really beautiful. I also just saw this photo. Now, we don't have to deal with this typically. I don't think there's ever been a RAAM where there was snow on top there. I don't know, actually. But here,
I haven't seen snow on Kuchara.
Yeah. So perhaps just in the wintertime, but here's an example photo.
Yeah.
And you could see. Now, I will agree. I remember riding through here on Kuchara, and I was also through in the daytime. And I remember it being so beautiful, and there are so many switchbacks, and you just keep looping around, and just the beauty, well, of Colorado and the Rocky Mountains. And so glad you have been able to see it through the daytime as a crew member. And I'm sure you can enjoy it a little bit more, take some photos and soak in the sights. But yeah, just a riveting story, Dex, of a huge challenge that you had to face. Some people, may have other issues like maybe saddle sores or maybe hot feet or, something else. But when you really have to deal with the conditions, either, huge winds or tornadoes or thunderstorms and hail and those kinds of things, it definitely adds to the difficulty. And perhaps that's something that a lot of folks, especially non-ultra cyclists or non-cyclists, may not appreciate about it. And in fact, I think even non-ultra cyclists, other cyclists who maybe they're doing, 50-mile rides, 100-mile rides, typically you're not having to deal with so many varying conditions, extreme heat in the desert, the high elevations and altitudes with the thunderstorms, the hail, and these kinds of things. And so hats off to you, Dex, for being able to push through, not just through all the way Kuchara, but making it thousands of miles past that to Maryland. Can't believe it. I mean, as you said earlier, 1,000 reasons to just give up.
Oh, yeah.
You found just one reason to keep going. I'd like to know more about that. What was that one reason for you?
I drew on inspiration a couple of different things. One of the things was in 2010, I was a paramedic by profession. But in the year 2000, I retired as a paramedic. And there was a guy that I used to ride bicycles here in Del Rio with all the time. His name, and he owned a business, a manufacturing business. And he had always told me, he said, Dex, if you ever get tired of being a paramedic, let me know. I got a job waiting for you. And so in 2000, I was going to retire as a medic, and I let him know. I said, I'm ready to go to work. And so he hired me. And this is a manufacturing type business. And the people there work on assembly line and whatnot. And I was in the office working. I wasn't on the assembly line. Mm-hmm. But there was a coworker there that worked on the assembly line. He didn't have much money. I imagine he put gas in his car $3 at a time because I imagine he couldn't afford to fill it up. And he was just a good old boy, just a good old boy. And in 2010, when I got ready to do RAAM, he approached me one day out in the production, and he said, Dex, I hear that you're going to be doing Race Across America. And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, are you collecting funds to do that? Are you taking donations?
Wow.
And I said, well, yeah, I am. And he reached in his pocket and pulled out $20. And he
Wow.
handed me that $20. And that kept me going through Kachara. That kept me going through Missouri. Every time I think about, I need a good reason, I think about that coworker, and I know how much that $20 meant to him. And so that was a very inspirational moment for me. And then another way I kept going was I had to raise money. I'd given a talk to the Del Rio Lions Club prior to the race, and they supported me and gave me donations and whatnot as I told them about the race. And one of the things that kept me going about that was, and my brother Joe was on my crew, and Joe kept the saying, said, what do you want to say in 3 weeks, Dex? What do you want to say in 3 weeks? Because I knew in 3 weeks after RAAM, I was going to be invited back to the Del Rio Lions Club to tell them about the race.
Wow.
And he said, Dex, every time I'd get frustrated and mad and want to quit and hurting and my saddle sores were bad and my hot feet were bad and everything was bad, he'd say, Dex, what do you want to say in 3 weeks? When you go back to that Lions Club and talk to those guys, what do you want to say? Are you wanting to say that, yeah, I had a hard time and I DNF'd? Or do you want to say, you completed RAAM? And that's what I used in 11. Because in 10, I had to go back to that Lions Club and tell them I DNF'd. But then in 11, I got to go back and tell them I made it. So those were two of the things that inspired me to continue on.
Wow. Yeah, amazing stories and incredible resilience, Dex, I must say, to embrace a few reasons to keep going and to think that even with all that adversity and all those obstacles that you faced, that you were able to push through. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of ultra cyclists, finding those reasons to push on. Many great reasons that you gave for others, supporting a cause, supporting a friend, somebody that is less fortunate, someone that's not able to do it themselves, or the support that we get from friends and family and even strangers many of the times, and folks that we see going as we're going across America. And so I'm glad we could learn about those reasons that help fuel you. I do want to share some of these photos from your races. Amazing.
That's just total exhaustion. That's total my brother Joe.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. That was taken in 2010. That was from 2010.
Wow.
And that was in 11. And I think Joe was telling me, if you take a right here, if you take a left here, you're going to end up Wisconsin. So he was my navigator.
That's so cool.
And Joe was my wife was my crew chief. Yeah. And she was the one that put all these logistics together. She's the one that did all this. And Joe was my brother. And Johnny was the bad cop and Joe was the good cop.
Ah, I see.
And so Johnny was the one that kept everybody on their toes and kept me on my toes and kept me in line. And she wouldn't let me get off that bicycle for anything. And Joe was a good cop. Oh, you're doing good, Dex. You're doing good,
Yeah. That's so cool. And I suppose we do need those kinds of members on our crew,
sure,
to keep us, on schedule and on track, because it does require a lot of discipline, but also a lot of encouragement, because it is a big challenge for the racer and also the crew. Now, Dex, I must say, you have a very great style in your glasses. You have some great ones on now, and even back then. So you actually ride with those glasses on then?
Oh, they're prescription. I couldn't see a
Yeah.
thing without them.
Yeah, yeah. So I must say you've probably been one of the most stylish ultra cyclists out there on the Race Across America route.
Well, I'll tell you the story about the glasses.
I'd love to hear it.
I was doing the Texas Hill Country race back in, I don't remember what year it was, long time ago. I was doing the Texas Hill Country race, and I'd always had problems with my glasses. I have a prescription. I can't see without my glasses. And I always had a problem with my glasses fogging up. And Johnny, my wife, tried everything in the world to keep my glasses from fogging up and fogging up. And I was in the Texas Hill Country 600, and my glasses were fogging up. And she had gotten some Rain-X. And Rain-X is what you put on a windshield to keep on your windshield of your car to keep it from fogging up.
Right,
so she had gotten some Rain-X. So my glasses were fogging up, and Johnny put this Rain-X on my plastic $300 prescription lenses. And guess what? Rain-X doesn't do well with plastic. It's good for glass, but it's not good for plastic. And it ruined my glasses. So after the Texas Hill Country 600, I had to get a new pair of glasses.
Wow.
And I was online and I was looking, and Johnny was on the computer with me. And I clicked on this orange pair of glasses, and Johnny said, "Oh, I like those." So that's when I bought the orange glasses, and that's where they came from. And that's
a cool story. Yeah, that's a great story, Dex. I love that. I'm sure many will appreciate hearing that story because, of course, I think you are well known for them. And got to finish RAAM in style, of course. That's so cool. Wow. I see a lot of action going on here.
Yeah, I think I was out of Twinkies.
I saw this photo here.
Yeah.
So was Twinkies one of your favorite snacks, go-to snacks when you're doing RAAM?
No, actually, the little Debbie oatmeal cookies were my favorite. I eat real food.
Right,
I eat cheeseburger toasters. I grilled cheese sandwich a week. Johnny has a little trucker's heat up oven inside the van, and she can heat anything up in there.
Cool.
And I like little mini payday bars, bit of honeys. I did use some Ensure. Ensure would help me get over a hump.
Oh, interesting. Even way back then, 2010 and 11.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I would, and Johnny had also made, this was back when Scratch Lab was just coming out. And she got a recipe book from them, and she made a bunch of Parmesan potatoes, little round Parmesan potatoes.
Those sound delicious.
They were very yummy. Yeah, they were really good.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to try those out. Sounds very good, and I'm sure very convenient to eat. And of course, here, 2011, you were number 383 forever. Dex Tooke, Race Across America. Amazing.
Yes. Guess where the NOCOM 383 race came from?
I see that now.
when I finished RAAM, I wanted to try my hand at race directing, and I knew the best place in Texas to have it was Big Bend, Fort Davis, and Alpine, that area. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have a race, I'm going to have it 383 miles, my RAAM number. And so I made a route that was 383 miles long. And the very first year we did NOCOM, that was the only distance we had, was a 383. And it's still my favorite.
Okay, yeah, interesting. But of course, in the years following that, you added other distances to that, including
I added the 208 mile, and I added the 1,000 mile.
Right. Amazing.
I just felt like the 1,000 mile, there's all these RAAM qualifiers out there, and NOCOM 383 was one of them. And they're all basically a 24-hour total exhaustion ride, and it's over, it's done with. You put forth your best effort for 24 hours or close to it, and that's it. And there's really not anything a step up from a total 24-hour into RAAM itself. And that's the dark side of RAAM. All of us can do these 24-hour, 400-mile loops or RAAM crewed races for 24 hours and give a 24-hour effort and get total exhaustion, then go to Denny's and eat breakfast. But the dark side of RAAM is you've got to go through all that and then go down for a sleep for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, maybe two, and then get back up and do it again. And then go to sleep and get back up and do it again and go to sleep and do that for 12 days. Right. And that's a huge, huge difference.
Yes.
So that's why I brought the 1,000-mile race in. It pushes the racer to that dark side of RAAM.
Yeah, it's a great option. And it's true what you say. And those interested in participating in the Race Across America for the first time, and if they don't have experience, it would be good for them to heed that advice, because it is true. I remember in these kinds of multi-day events, including RAAM, just the feeling of after you've ridden for, say, almost 24 hours in the first day or the second day or whichever day, and then you're going down for, your, call it the longest sleep break that you'll take. But as you get off the bike after all the pains and the aches and the hard day of heat and elements, and you think, wow, all I get is half an hour, 1 hour. And then I have to do that all over again for 20 something hours. And that feeling is enough to make you want to stop. And
you better think of one good reason.
Yes. And as you put it, the dark side of RAAM, and I couldn't agree more that is the right way to describe it. It is a very dark place that you find yourself in
that's where the delirium comes in. That's where the hallucinations comes in. That's where all these people say they want to meet their true self. Well, you better be prepared for who you meet, because you're going to be surprised.
Right. That's so true, Dex. Now, of course, you are the author of the book Unfinished Business, as we showed before. Folks can pick that up on Amazon. And I just love the title. And I remember reading it and feeling so inspired by it. Why don't you tell those who aren't familiar or haven't had the chance yet to read it, kind of just at a high level, why or how you came up with the name Unfinished Business? What did that really mean for you?
Well, it's obvious that in 2010, I didn't make it. In 2011, I had to come back and do my unfinished business. In 2011, when I did RAAM, I had 4 abdominal hernias.
Wow.
And my doctor had cleared me to go ahead. He said he didn't think they would rupture or they wouldn't be bad, that I could go ahead and, he thought, do RAAM, but he wanted to take care of them after RAAM. And so after RAAM in 11, I went to the doctor and they did surgery on me to repair those hernias. They actually found 9 hernias. But anyway, they did the hernia repair, and the doctor told me, he said, I don't want you even near a bicycle for, I think it was 8 weeks.
Wow. And
I had never been off my bike for more than 4 days in 30 years. So it was going to be really hard for me not to get on my bicycle. And so first thing we did when we got home was that Johnny disassembled my bicycle because she knew I couldn't put it back together. And so I didn't have a bicycle to ride. And one of my crew members had been encouraging me to write a book about my RAAM. And I didn't want to write it. And he kept encouraging. And there I was, 8 weeks of nothing to do. Yeah. So that's where Unfinished Business came from. I wrote the book during my off the bike time. And I wrote it by, I did it chronologically by time. I interviewed all my crew, and I had my route book. I had one of the things that I had the crew do during my entire round was they documented every little thing in the route book, every little any little incident or anything. They'd write a note in the route book about it, and so I had with their interviews and with my route book, I had a good layout of what had happened in RAAM, and Facebook just went wild following me, and everybody was posting Facebook comments and stuff. So I was able to chronologically go time station to RAAM, and I had notes about each in between, and I had interviews from my crew, and I had the RAAM comment or the Facebook comments, and that's how I put the book together. And I'm not an author. I don't pretend to be an author. I don't. All I do is tell a story.
Well, you've told a great story. Of course, not only is it an inspiring read, but a great value to those who are interested in the race across America. A lot of nuggets, tips, and advice.
The book is, I've really been surprised by the success of the book. It's tested time. I mean, I still get, people are still buying, and even people that aren't cyclists or that don't know anything about ultra cycling or anything. I get a lot of comments all the time from people who just enjoyed the inspirational story about it. And it's just, I've really been surprised that it's lasted as long as it has.
Well, of course, I think well-deserved and an incredible story, especially in 2010, making it, 99% of the way there to the finish line. That is amazing. Of course, great story now and a great adventure to share. And now that you can have the RAAM finisher next to your name, and that title suits you well. This is a happy photo here.
Yeah, that's Johnny. And she is the force behind me, always has been. She's followed me and helped me throughout everything, all endeavors.
Amazing. Yeah, as I say, aside every great man is an even greater woman.
That's true. That's true.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys are able to share in that. It definitely means a lot for racers and their crews, especially if they're related. Wow, Dex, you really look serious here. Definitely a RAAM competitor in this one.
Yeah. Seeing the little radio, the Cardo microphone there, I would be, I don't know, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, and I would have what my crew ended up calling hallucinatory friends show up.
Yeah.
And they would ride on my shoulder right here.
Huh.
And I would talk to them. And my crew would tell me they would listen to me talking to my friends on my shoulder during the night. And that's just total exhaustion, total delirium. But I had a lot of conversations with my hallucinatory friends. And I'll share another quick story. It was in the Appalachians in 11. And Michael West was one of my drivers, and he was driving. And Connis Beneke was navigating for me. And Connis and Michael were behind me, and I was going down the road, and they saw me swerve like this. And Connie said, "Oh no, he's falling asleep." And Michael said, "No, he's waking up." And so that was pretty typical.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible the things that happen to us physically as we're out there on the road and the bizarre things that we do. I love this photo here. Getting some ride fuel here?
That was on the Texas crossing.
Ah.
That's a cheeseburger slider. You can see the cheese on the sandwich
Oh
there.
yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, and that's heated up, and I can eat those all day long. And
there's a great photo with those orange glasses, the famous orange glasses.
yeah.
All right, there he is. Race Across America finisher, Dex Tooke, number 383.
I wanted to hold my bicycle above my head.
Yeah.
But because I'd seen other racers do it. But I didn't realize that the other racers were holding their bicycles up right over their head. It wasn't holding it upside down. And if you look at that photo, water's dripping out of the speed fill down on me because I'm holding it upside down. I'm getting showered while I'm holding my bicycle.
Yeah, I see that actually. That's so funny. Wow, that definitely adds to the memory. So yeah, well, sometimes, like in football and other sports, they dump the
Gatorade.
I guess that was yours.
Yep.
That's so cool. Yeah, a lot of great memories, Dex. So I see you nice and happy here in this photo. Must have been
that was at
the start. Yeah, makes sense. Explains the big smile there. Aye, Dex 383.
That's the north-south Texas crossing, and that's at the finish line. Do you know who that man is to my left with the hat on?
I do not. Who is that?
Dang it, Hoffman, Doug Hoffman. He was the head of UMCA years ago.
Interesting.
And Doug was actually one of my officials on the Texas crossing.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow. Yeah, amazing history. UMCA, the Ultra Marathon Cycling Association, has been renamed. Actually, don't know when that took place, but in recent times to the World Ultra Cycling Association, WUCA. And we did actually have the current president of WUCA, Mark Poland, on the show.
Yes, I
twice.
With Mark.
Yeah, great guy, and a lot happening there when it comes to ultra cycling, and their attempt to promote the sport and to bring more riders into it. And so for those who are interested, of course, in learning more about that, let's see if I could pull it up here. Trying to find it. We had an episode with Mark. Several, actually. There we go. Yeah. Mark Poland. He was in episode 9. That's where we talked all about the World Ultra Cycling Association. Of course, previously UMCA, now WUCA. And he was actually on the show twice because he also set the 100-kilometer world record 60-plus outdoor track category, just about 25 miles per hour. So that was pretty impressive.
I did that going down a hill once.
Yeah. And I did want to point out also earlier you had mentioned 2010. You're right. It was Jure Robich's final RAAM, and that was his 5th win. So a 5-time champion.
He was killed in September after that June.
Right, exactly. And we had this 10-year commemorative episode with his crew chief in the 2010 RAAM. So I'm sure he must have seen you out there as well.
Yep.
Yeah, met Jaj Planenchek. And
one thing about Yuri there, he had told me he was wanting to break the 8-day barrier, and then that weather hit, and he didn't break 9 days. I think it was his slowest RAAM ever.
Wow.
Yeah, just because of the weather.
Yeah,
but he did win. He won the race. He won RAAM.
Right.
He just didn't. It was over a day longer than what he expected.
Yeah, and that's what makes it difficult year in and year out. Even for the same athlete, even as fit as you are, you just never know what's happening. And that's one of the tricky things too, just in terms of your own race strategy and your pacing, your rest breaks, because although you may always plan on a certain cushion, you don't know what's laying ahead, and perhaps you didn't provide enough of a cushion for yourself, and you get halfway out, and all of a sudden.
when you're a bubble man, you don't have those cushions.
But of course, you were able to make it. And I think the story is that it is possible, even with adverse conditions. Even in your first attempt in 2010, you made it 99% of the way across the country, where most of the field actually DNF'd earlier on. Now, here's a great image here of one of your crossings here, 873 miles, 64 hours.
That's north to south.
Amazing. Wow, that must have been quite the ride.
Yep. It's had a great crew. To do I'll call it WUCA, to do a WUCA cross-state attempt, if it takes more than 24 hours, you have to have two different officials. And so I had to have two different follow vehicles with an official in each follow vehicle, and they had to get rest ever so often. And so logistically, that just adds to the nightmare of it.
Right. Yeah, there are certain rules that you have to follow and a certain structure to do one of these world records that
a lot of paperwork to fill out too.
Right. That's what I've heard. We had quite a number of world record setters and attempters, even on the show, and many more to come. And so I have been learning more about that. And so, of course, you've done that on a number of occasions. And to have that experience, of course, that is part of the challenge, both in the Race Across America and, quite frankly, any ultra event, especially multi-day ones. There are a lot of logistics, and you either need a really good crew who could take care of it all yourself, or you just have to buckle up and get it done.
Yeah.
In addition to the thousands of miles that you have to ride to even get to the start line, let alone the finish line. And I did want to point out to folks that you have over 293,000 career miles that you have logged yourself, which is incredible. And of course, it's been many years and many great achievements through all those miles. Here's another photo. Now, was this from your other record, cross-state record?
That's the west to east cross-state record. Yes, and that's my crew.
That's awesome.
Of course, Johnny was the crew chief.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Jones on the far right was one of the UMCA officials, and the guy taking the picture was the other one. He wasn't in the picture. Ty Sporterfield. He was the other UMCA.
Very cool. Yeah, a lot of fun memories. I think
that's my November bicycle. That's the one that I have on my trainer now.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very cool. And it is amazing, just the crews that you assemble and the fun, the adventures, the memories that we're able to share with them. Of course, you have also been a crew member for a number of very successful athletes yourself. So you've seen it all. What is a few things that you have seen that has really stood out to you in a great crew versus not so great of a crew?
I guess the best crews I've been a part of have all been under the watchful eye of Charlie Combs. Charlie Combs is the best crew chief I've ever been around. He's Mark Pattinson's crew chief, and I've been across America with Charlie 3 times, I guess. I'll tell you about one time with Charlie.
Okay.
Charlie did RAAM. He raced RAAM. And this was in 2018. He raced RAAM. And I was on his crew when he raced RAAM. And Charlie finished RAAM. And you can imagine the kind of shape he was in when he finished RAAM. And then Charlie and I got in a car in Durango after he finished RAAM, and we drove back to Oceanside, and we crewed Mark Pattinson and and Aeneas in a 2-person RAAM team.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
we did RAW and then we did RAAM.
Holy cow.
And it was something I won't ever do that again. That was just too physically hard.
Oh my goodness, I can only imagine.
And crewing a 2-person team, everybody else I've crewed have all been solos. I've always been a navigator and I crew solo. And it's kind of like the racer gets on his bike, just keeps pedaling, and the navigator keeps telling him where to go. And that's fine. But my goodness, these 2-person teams, they were covering 500 miles a day.
Right.
And so that means if you get rest as a crew person, you've got to cover 800 miles a day.
Wow.
And it was just, and after already doing RAW, I mean, it was just really, really hard. Anyway, Charlie is a great crew person. He's a great crew chief. He's very well organized, very well prepared. He knows all the ins and outs. I think in 2017, our crew, with Charlie as crew chief, got awarded the best crew in RAAM. I forget the name of it. They give an award for the best crew in RAAM every year, and Charlie got that. As far as the negative aspects of what I've seen in RAAM as a crew member, I've seen it all. It's usually not prepared, not being prepared, miscommunication, just not having a plan. It all adds up, and it can really go south in a hurry.
Yeah, very true. It takes a lot to synchronize everything, and especially difficult as you go along. As you said earlier, for riding, it's only fun and perhaps you can call it easier in the first day. But after that, even for the crew, as everyone gets sleep deprived and nerves going, maybe, missteps and little things that happen, they all add up because it's nonstop. So you can't just take a break and reset and, start again in a few days' time. And you got to keep going and roll with the punches. And so that's very true. But thanks for sharing all of your wisdom with that. And it's amazing the kind of ultra endurance things that you put yourself through. Can't believe you guys did RAW and then went all the way back to do it all over again and more, triple that. That's amazing. Well, definitely one for the books for sure. Now, Dex, just as we kind of close up on this chat with you, I would love to know what you think in all your years of experience and witnessing others as a crew member. What do you think most people don't realize about ultra cycling, whether it's a non-cyclist or just a non-ultra cyclist?
If you're going to do RAAM, there are all kinds of RAAM qualifying races to go do. And they're all good and everything. But to me, the best RAAM, if you want to do RAAM, go crew RAAM first. Go see what it takes to go across this country, this vast country, in 12 days. Go see the 3 a.m. mornings and the 7 a.m. mornings and the 3 p.m. 115 degrees in Parker, Arizona. Go see all this stuff and find out what it takes to prepare and logistically get the 2 vehicles, the 9 people, and the lunatic on the bicycle across America. Go see what that takes. And I think that will prepare you better for RAAM than any 24-hour race or any 400-mile race that's a RAAM qualifier. I think everyone should crew a solo RAAM that'd be the best thing they could do. I'm not saying that it should be qualified, they should be mandatory that they do it, but I'm saying that'd be the best thing they could do. Either that or do a 2-person RAAM team. But definitely go across this country before you just step up and decide to race. When we did RAAM in 10, none of my crew member actually ever really knew what RAAM was. I had been to California one time when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'd never been to California since.
Wow.
And we hit Oceanside totally green. I mean, green as we could be. And it just really, it showed. But I think crewing or doing a two-person RAAM would be the best thing that a person could do that may not know, to answer your question, may not know what ultracycling is about.
Yeah, I'm glad you did emphasize that, Dex, because, I would agree myself that if you haven't seen the country, you'd be shocked if you were to find out all those things for the first time biking in RAAM yourself. And I think chatting with you, we've heard, even just a glimmer of what happens out there. Of course, I'm sure there are many other stories you could share, even in your two crossings and your many others as a crew member, from elements to even, wild dogs, different insects, mosquitoes. Of course, you have the weather and the conditions, the different road conditions, the different crew conditions. There's so much that can go on that you may not even think about. Of course, you don't know what you don't know. And so I am glad that we were able to capture and share some of your stories, because at least with this, episode, folks who are interested in doing RAAM can get some glimpse into what they can expect going across, not just as a rider, but also as a crew member. And so thank you for sharing all of your knowledge with us. Now, I am curious, Dex, what do you think? What are some of your tips for people who just want to get started with ultracycling? What has helped you?
Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm a believer in the 21-day rut. And that means that if you get up every morning and you put your left leg into your pants leg first, if you get up one morning and decide to put your right leg into your pant leg, you're going to fall on your butt. But if for 21 days straight, you take your right leg and you forcibly put your right leg into that right pant leg, and then on the 22nd day you get up and you try to put it in your left, you're going to fall on your butt. I'm a believer in the 21-day rut. And I'm a believer in the 21 days of walking the straightaways and running the curves. And if you want to be an ultracyclist, you've got to get your life in a rut. And you have to do it every day, at least for the first 21. And then when you get ready on that 22nd day, if you don't go out, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it.
Well said.
And you need to get to where you don't miss it.
Wow. Yeah. Those are some great analogies and great story, of course, descriptive of your own journey as well. So we know it works. You've made it across successfully. Thanks for sharing that, Dex.
You're welcome.
Now, just a few short questions here. A sprint to the finish line, just to end on a fun note. I'm wondering, Dex, how would you rate yourself when it comes to bicycle maintenance and just cleaning and lubing and fixing up your own bike on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excellent? Where would you put yourself?
2.
All right. Okay. Hey, not bad. It's a positive number. Recently had an episode with a 17-year-old Adam Ashwell. His answer was a -2, I believe.
Well, maybe I should adjust my answer. I'm not very good at maintaining my bicycle. I would rather be riding my bicycle than cleaning my bicycle. I'm not mechanically inclined. It's just like when I had the surgery and the doctor wanted me off the bicycle, Johnny disassembled it because she knew I couldn't put it back together. So I'm pretty low on that scale.
Yes, but of course you managed to make it work for you the last, 2 decades, I suppose, but especially over the last decade. And so something's working right there. Now, Dex, I'm wondering, who would you want to nominate for an episode on this show? A story that has inspired you or a story you just think is worth sharing?
The guy I guess I most admire in ultra cycling is Rob Kish. Rob Kish, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but Rob Kish, think about this. He has done RAAM 20 times. Think about that. 20 years he's done RAAM.
Yeah.
That's not 20 years of cycling. That's 20 years of doing RAAM. And he came from a time back in the 90s. And I would love to have been a part of RAAM back in the 90s, the late 90s. They didn't have track leaders. They didn't have radios in their ear. They didn't have all this technology. They were out there, most of them with mopeds on the back of their RVs, so they could scout up ahead, get on their moped and go up ahead and see if their competitor was sleeping or not. And Rob he's the epitome of relentless forward motion, RFM. He's won RAAM a couple of times. I don't know how many times, but at least a couple of times. He's a tremendous competitor, and I would just love to have been part of RAAM and part of his crew or part of that era back in the 90s, back in the Danny Chu days and the Rob Kish days and the Wolfgang Fasching days. Those are just amazing to me.
Yeah, well, thanks for that nomination. Yeah, amazing stories all around. But of course, yours is truly inspiring. And for those who would love to know more and to learn more about your journey and to garner the wisdom that you've gathered, of course, they can pick up your book. So we're glad you did manage to write that book, even though you didn't want to. Of course, many of us have benefited from it. And so, Dex, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show, and I hope to host you again in the near future. I'm sure even at 7 years of age, there's still a lot that you would love to do. I mean, you have the RAAM bug and, of course, the ultra cycling heart. So there's always something to do, whether it's a record attempt or being able to support someone else in their ambitions. I did want to close with this beautiful photo, you and your wife, and of course, many great memories and a great partnership indeed. And anything that you'd like to say to her?
Oh, well, I love her. She's, like I said earlier, she's been the backbone of all my life's endeavors, not just ultra cycling, but everything else I've done. We met in high school and we got married the day after she graduated from high school, and we've been stuck together ever since. And, she's been a blessing.
That's sweet, Dex. Well, a wonderful partnership. And of course, I'm glad you two were able to have a lot of great success together. So thanks a lot, Dex.
Thank you for having me, Justin.
The time. And so, of course, those who are watching at home, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dex. Definitely check out his book, Unfinished Business. And I hope that it'll help you a lot. I know it helped me a lot. And it's been a real pleasure chatting with him. We hope to see you out on the roads of RAAM someday, or at some other ultra event, perhaps even the one that he started in Texas, No Country for Old Men. So check it out. Until next episode, everyone, keep spinning ultra.